Comes up and you guys can see it.
Yep.
Perfect. So as I mentioned before, my name's Chris Lewis, and I'm a product sales specialist. I've been with Cisco about 17 years. I spent the first 15 as a technical solutions architect, specifically working around contact center. My job is to translate those business challenges into solutions that Cisco can solve with its contact center portfolio. Now, in doing that, I've spent my entire career in this space. So as someone who started out on a contact center help desk, answering phone calls from government contractors about how to fix their PC and how to set dip switches on video cards, all that kind of stuff, to the guy who was actually managing all of the reporting, contact center configuration, moves, adds, changes, all that kind of stuff, to the guy who now actually helps design those things and put the product out there. So I've been in this space for long enough to really start showing my age. But what's been the most interesting is watching the space evolve from something that was fairly straightforward, just getting the phone calls answered, to self-service empowerment, to digital engagement via most of the CRM platforms out there, and seeing this move into new collaboration platforms like Twitter and WeChat and all that kind of stuff. What hasn't changed are the communication challenges that are there. What are we seeing? And these are recurring themes that are out there in the space. We need to meet citizens where they are. We've got people that are coming in for applications over their cell phone, their home phone, using apps that are built for localities, not only states. We see this a lot, especially in the larger locales that will have applications that have been built specifically for them. People reaching out via email, Facebook, and we've got to be able to handle all those different medium. Event-driven and seasonal volume. Think about during hurricane seasons, what has to happen for places in South Florida, right? How busy they get when there's a hurricane on the horizon. Or think about it in higher education when you're talking about registration and those increases in volumes that maybe only be for a month or two. How do we solve that? These are the things that we have discussions about all the time. It's really about making sure we're getting the people to the right resource without transferring, without callbacks, so that we don't have voicemails to check, all those kinds of things. And maybe even in areas where you haven't thought about for your business, being able to automate processes like starting and stopping services, being able to send out special alerts and notifications. Think about tax time, where you want to get notifications out to people where their tax bill is coming to them so they can be on the lookout for it, or maybe after they've had it for a couple of weeks, you want to remind them to pay that. Same thing with a water bill, right? You've got a automation where you could automate start stop, or maybe send somebody a reminder if it was past due. But all of those things have to be front-ended with intelligence, but if they are, then they have to be connected with agents for the times when you can't actually automate that process. Now, we're not saying that you try to automate everything, but there's always some low-hanging fruit that allows us to leverage automation when it's the right things to do. But there's still going to be times when you got to connect with an agent. So we need to do that with context, meaning everything that an agent did potentially upfront in a self-service IVR, or talking to what we call an intelligent voice agent, or a bot as they're known. We want to bring that information and deliver that to an agent. Things like trash pickup, bus routes, if you've got a service termination notice, or just a confirmation that you've turned somebody's water off after they moved out, those kinds of things, we can automate them, right? They don't require a phone call, but there may be times when there are other things that are very agency or department specific that you want to automate. Was there a failed transaction? Have they tried to reach out to me across different types of media? These are the kind of challenges that we're seeing in trying to address these things head on across all of these different departments and agencies. Now, there's an expectation. That expectation is being driven by things like Netflix, things like Airbnb, things like Tesla and their experiences. And unfortunately, state, local, higher ed customers, you're not immune to those things, because really people are starting to expect these things across all mediums. It's not just as simple as pick up the phone and call somebody anymore, because I may want to text them. I may be going in through an application. A lot of folks that are reaching out now, they don't want to talk to somebody. And unfortunately, in some areas, they're understaffed to be able to make sure that those calls get answered in the first place, so we can automate those things. What it's really driving is, if you look on the bottom left, there's that kind of contact center is an exception center as opposed to the call center. So think about doing some of the things that you need to be able to do or want to be able to do from a communication standpoint, meaning automatically answer the questions about FAQs, what we call low-hanging fruit, right? Did my application get accepted? Was my renewal for a particular benefit, did that go through? Automating those processes very simply, because they're important to get answers to, but they may not require someone to actually talk to. But in time, you end up with things that are still going to have to come to the contact center. So when we deliver them, we want to deliver them with context, all the information we have about that person contacting us, and just as importantly, all the detail around the answers that we need to get them, kind of the one and done perspective. If you look at Cisco and how we fit in this space, it's absolutely a core competency and a priority. Now, everyone on the phone may be aware of all the products and portfolios breadth and depth that Cisco has. What you may not be aware of is how large it is just from the contact center focus. We've actually made in the last 4 years about $1.4 billion in AI acquisitions. There's a communications platform as a service acquisition that we made. Just that one acquisition was 730 million. Now, we're not going to get into all of those things today, but the important point to take away here is that we have 2,100 dedicated employees working for contact center. That's just focused on contact center. Now, obviously, Cisco is much larger than that, but those 2,100 dedicated employees, okay, I say dedicated employees. Maybe during the World Cup, some of those people aren't so dedicated. Maybe Friday after Thanksgiving, they're not so dedicated, but the rest of the year, they're absolutely dedicated to doing everything that you need around contact center. And that's interesting because we don't have this shared focus. Now, of course, we understand the breadth and depth of the Cisco portfolio in its entirety, but all of those folks are dedicated to making contact center what it should be, what it needs to be to meet the needs of the modern business. Now, we talk about needs of modern business, and I know this is a very busy slide. I'm going to apologize up front, but because we're only on 10-minute plus time frame here, 15-minute plus time frame, I wanted to jump in here so that there are some things that I could point out. This is our cloud platform known as Webex Contact Center, and what you're seeing is an agent's experience that's in the middle of a conversation. And when I say in the middle of a conversation, there can be multiple conversations going on at any given time. For example, if you take a look up here at the left-hand side, as soon as I get the right color on my highlighter, there we go, you can see that I have, although I'm not a very good circle drawer with my touchpad, you can see that I have multiple communications going on. You can see that there's one that someone's reached in from WeChat. There's actually the WeChat application that, while you may not be familiar with it, the rest of the world is. So if you go into places like South Florida, you'll see that a lot of folks that communicate with the agencies there, they've been used to using a more normally accepted chat platform that is used overseas as well. And you'll notice that part of that is the ability to actually change languages midstream so that we can have someone who speaks English talking with someone who speaks Haitian Creole natively. So being able to very easily switch back and forth between languages is something that we do. There's the ability to have history of contacts over here, calls, web chats, emails, different platforms, again, like WeChat, like we're in the middle of right there. All of those things are very easy to handle at one given time with our cloud-centric solution. What makes it interesting is being able to see things like customer experience, what their journey is in customer history. If I take a look, you'll notice that customer journey here is highlighted, and I can literally see every single thing that this person has reached out to me and done. So when they came in via text message, where they filled out a form, they had a video chat with somebody, all of these things we capture and bring to the forefront. We are not trying to replace a CRM platform. What we're trying to do is enhance it and make all the detail relevant. If you were using a Salesforce.com or a Microsoft Dynamics, you may be leveraging that screen instead of this one for all of your customer information. That's an important distinction because we want to make sure whatever information is relevant, what context is relevant to that particular agent, we're delivering in the form of a configurable screen. It can be as simple or as sophisticated as you would like, but that's the important distinction, is because when you start to solve a business problem, everybody's business problems are a little bit different, so the way they go about solving them may be different as well. Across platforms, I tried to break this down into its simplest form. We have two on-premise platforms. We have Contact Center Express, which is up to 400 agents. We have Contact Center Enterprise, which is up to 24,000 agents. We've actually got one customer that's like 28,000 agents on that, so it can be a little bit bigger. But our Contact Center Express has been around about 18, 19 years now. When I came here 17 years ago, we were on Express version 3.5. and now we're on Express version 12.5. So again, it's been around for a long time. On the right-hand side, we have a couple of cloud versions. We have WebEx Contact Center, which supports up to 3,000 agents. That's the screen you were looking at a second ago. And then something called WebEx Contact Center Enterprise for up to 24,000 agents. This is a manifestation of our premise solutions being able to be run not only in the cloud independently, but also if you're configured and using the WebEx Contact Center Enterprise, we give you the ability to move that solution into the cloud and take some of those day-to-day management applications and move them to our teams, things like upgrades. You can do managed service, all those kinds of things. What's important to notice here is that you can do this in a hybrid environment where you'll have some premise and some cloud as you're migrating. It's not just like flipping a switch to be able to do that. All of our platforms, in some shape or form, will support the ability to integrate with bots. Now, typically we do that today with Google, but we are offering other options to do that. Maybe you're an IBM Watson shop. Maybe you have an existing environment with Google, or you're using Amazon Lex or something like that. We want to make it so that you're not forced into a particular platform, but if you already have a relationship, we want to be able to support that. That's an important distinction, because whether you're looking at a premise contact center platform that has the ability to natively connect into applications for AI bots or those intelligent virtual agents, whether you're doing that for voice, whether you're doing that for chat, whether you're doing it from an app on the website, doesn't matter. We still want to be able to have a singular interface to be able to tie those into. And more importantly, if it has to go to an agent, if the bot can't answer the question, we need to be able to send it to the agent with context. And that's an important distinction, right? You can throw all the bots out there that you want, but what happens if the bot just doesn't have the answer that the customer is looking for? We've still got to be able to reach out, get that detail to a particular agent. So I think that's an important distinction. Now, I wanted to talk about this just in a high level standpoint. So we've got 4 different platforms, 2 premise, 2 cloud. We even have one that is in the process of FedRAMP that's part of our cloud offering as well, that can be there. So when you start to look at those things, understanding that in some way, shape, or form, voice bots, chat bots can all be integrated into there. Multiple platforms of chat and voice bots, again, on the horizon to be able to be integrated in there. So if you've already done that external work. But we want to be consistent, and we also want you to know that you don't have to do this in a vacuum. Cisco is there to help you do that. DSI is there to help you do that. So we want to make sure that you guys are aware of that in all of its forms. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to the team to ask a couple of quiz questions, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A.
All right, so we'll give you a few moments here to answer the questions. The first one is, what contact center vendor or platform are you using today? So that's a word cloud. So if you just want to type in your answers there, we'll be able to see that. And again, if you weren't here in the beginning, to access the Slido, it should be on the right panel of your screen. And if you aren't seeing it, you can go down to the apps icon and click on Slido. So we have Cisco. It's a good one.
That's a positive. We'll take that. We'll take that in any way, shape, or form, whether it's premise today and you're looking at cloud, or whether it's already cloud and you're looking to enhance it. That's what we do every single day.
Wait for a couple more to come in here.
Yeah, guys, I think it's important. It's important to point out we've got. I'm trying to think of the total number. You know, our cloud solutions are now included in Gartner's quadrant, Gartner's Magic Quadrant. This is the first year that we've had our full cloud portfolio included in there. Gartner made some changes to it in the past couple of years. They did a consolidation. They used to do a separate report for Americas and for the UK and what we would call European. They used to be 2 separate reports. Well, when they combined them, we didn't meet the minimum spec because you had to have so many agents in the UK. And while we have that many agents, we had them on separate platforms, meaning separate versions. So now that everything is kind of cycled through and caught up, we're absolutely on the Magic Quadrant this year with our WebEx Contact Center platform. And that's been a question for a lot of folks. Where are you? Why aren't you on the quadrant? And again, we were trying to catch up with some different things that Gartner had kind of moved the goalpost on us. We've caught back up now, and now we are included in that. So as just an update, because a lot of folks ask that, especially when we see that at the state level in agencies. That's a big deal being on there. So now you can actually see that in the latest Gartner report as well.
Okay, so how familiar are you with Contact Center? And that can be before this presentation or after. We have one vote for very familiar. That's good. Hopefully that was after the presentation.
Well, we didn't get down in the weeds today, and we know that this was just a limited time frame. This was just kind of a what I'd call a glancing blow, right? This is for folks that maybe didn't have a lot of experience with Cisco, or maybe didn't realize that Cisco had a contact center platform or platforms for premise or for cloud, but to make sure that people are really understanding what's out there and that we can have some of these conversations around the platform.
We have one for somewhat familiar. That's good.
It wanted all questions all at once.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if that's the same for everyone.
Move on with some of them here. Okay. The next one is, does Contact Center allow SMS or voice assistance?
That's a good one. I like that. Scratch my chin on that one.
Three votes for both. That's good. The next one. How many dedicated employees does Cisco have working on the contact center team?
I don't know who put that question there. That was a softball. No reason. Michelle, you got that one right, didn't you?
Yes.
You guessed 2,100. You are correct.
The answer to the last one still right.
Yep.
Again, caveat that with during the World Cup, the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
Maybe they're not as dedicated, right? I understand.
Most of the time.
And then what WebEx web browsers can be used for Cisco WebEx Contact Center? We have Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Firefox, or all of the above. It looks like everyone voted for all the above, so that's good.
That's great, because that was a trick question, because I never said during the presentation.
Right.
However, you're all right. That was my curveball thrown to everyone. I wanted to see what people said, and you're 100% right. It's one of those things that we work with just about every browser, and we've certified all of those, meaning you can run that in production, no issues there. If you run into an issue, it's probably something that we've seen and addressed, and we can help you through that. So that's a positive note.
Right. And how would you rate this presentation today? Hopefully everyone put a 5 for that one. That's what we're expecting.
5, 3, 4. This wasn't meant to be death by PowerPoint. I could have done that. We don't want to do that. That wasn't the time for today. This was just making sure that people knew that there's something out there and to have those conversations. And we kind of talked about this as a team internally, right? Kind of what the engagement looks like, that sort of thing.
Okay, so all the questions are answered. We can move on to the Q&A portion. So there's actually a Q&A section here in Slido for you to submit your question, and then it will pop up for us, and then we can answer it for you. Yeah, I can start. I have a few questions for Chris. What does a typical contact center engagement look like?
Excellent lead in. So when we talk about a typical contact center engagement, while the end goal is very similar for a lot of customers, what ends up happening here is everybody's go-to-market or the way they get to that end goal is a little bit differently. So what we typically start with is interviewing the folks that are in charge of the contact center. Now, interviewing is sometimes as simple as there's a challenge that hasn't been solved, and meaning you've got a lot of questions or a lot of calls that are going unanswered. You've got customer frustration where maybe their calls aren't being routed properly. And sometimes it's time and motion studies. We've literally sat down with agents with a stopwatch to understand what can be done to improve the flow and kind of speed up the process. Now, part of this is about the discovery phase, and the discovery is really where we start to get into the nuts and bolts. That's from the user level, that's from the management level, that's from the executive level, from things like reporting, uh, outcomes that they're expecting. So our engagement really starts with that discovery, and then it grows from there as to where we take it. Depending on what the outcome of the discovery is, it may be into a formal demonstration. It may be into a higher level of discovery to determine what exactly is needed from a business standpoint. But it really revolves around the engagement with the folks that are leveraging the platform. And I mean the IT staff, the call center supervisors, even the agents, and having a discussion around what they're doing, what's working, what's not working, and what's their desired business outcome. That's really how the engagement starts.
I do have another one for you, Chris. How do we go about doing a more specific customer demonstration for everyone?
Perfect. So when we do that, after this is kind of a dovetail from the discovery. So what we like to do, instead of just showing up and throwing the product out there and saying, hey, here it is, take a look. What we do is at the end of that discovery, we can usually build in business scenarios that help you understand what this would look like in your environment. Everything from customized web pages with the voice assistants or voice bots and chat assistant chat bots on there, to being able to build custom workflows that leverage your voice enabled scripts. So things like speech recognition, to have voice bots that are up front, what it would be like in your environment. So it's discovery. And then the next phase is that customized demonstration. So it means reaching out to either your Cisco or DSI account teams, having a discussion with them around needs of contact center. They pull us in, and then we talk about it internally and then set up time to do the discovery. And then after the discovery, we can create readback documents and, more importantly, customized demonstrations to show you this is what it would look like in your environment. Kind of here's that look, feel, and here's the business outcome you're driving towards. And then we come up with next step plans, right? Whether it's proof of concept, if it's purchase, if we've got to run a hybrid environment where you can maybe only move one group at a time. But that's really how things lead, kind of start to finish, with the discovery leading off. The discovery drives the direction for the next elements. And a lot of times those elements are customized demonstrations. So again, it more mirrors your environment. That's our go-to-market strategy for that, for the engagement.
And if you were interested in doing that, we can collect information and get that sent out to you then prior to doing that for you. And I don't see any current questions coming in. So if you have any last minute things you want to ask, go ahead and put that in the Slido.
Question we've been getting a lot recently, because, and unfortunately they've been in the news for not good reasons while people are typing their questions, is about Avaya, right? How do we get through this Avaya thing? They're really struggling these days. I'm not throwing Avaya under the bus by any stretch of the imagination. There are a lot of people at Cisco who are former Avaya folks, and I've been competing with them for a number of years. And you hate to see a company that's been a good competitor for a long time in not so good position. And that's the question we've been getting a lot from municipalities and from state agencies right now that are heavily invested in Avaya. What do we do? How do we migrate off of this? Because they're making the news, and not for good reasons these days. So when you've got a situation where you want to plan, that's something that we can do as well. Help you come up with a plan, get out of a not so good situation into something that's maybe a little bit more positive from an outcome perspective. We've been showing steady growth. We're literally putting 4 to 5 customers a week on our cloud platform, cloud-centric platform. That is really where most people are headed. If you want to stay premise, we've got that covered as well. And we are #1 in North America in premise-based agent counts. So about 3 million agents, 36,000 plus customers, and a number of those are in the process of migrating over to cloud. But not everyone's going that way, and that's okay. We want you to have options. We're not trying to force you from one into the other.
All right. I don't see any questions coming up. That might be a good thing.
Let's reach out.
Do you have any questions? Or?
No.
Okay. Well, if that's everything, we will see everyone back in October for the wrap up of our webinar chat series, which is on WebEx Suite. And we're going to compile everything that we've done the past few months and put that into one. But be sure to watch out for more information on that. And thanks for joining this session. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
afternoon. Bye-bye.
You too.